And this is Tigers Talk with Chirco and Company. I am your host, Vito Chirco, alongside my brother, my sidekick, and Dominic, my partner in crime. Dom Chirco. Dom, what's going on today?
Ready to talk about another week of fun-filled baseball stories.
Tigers baseball and Major League Baseball, right? News and notes. And today, starting off, the leadoff topic, per se, is Brad Ausmus. Once again, we go back to bad Brad, sexy Brad, and his mismanagement of the Tigers bullpen on Sunday afternoon against the Houston Astros. The American League West leading Stros, who are a good ball club, better than the Tigers by far. But the Tigers had a chance of winning that series, right? And then he messed it all up for us. Proved to be another disaster on his hands. And he left Alex Wilson out there to struggle. I mean, for a bad scenario. Facing Jose Altuve, the best hitter, right? Really, contact-wise, you could argue that. And the best hitter on the Astros this year, and has been for 2 years now, I would say. He let him face Altuve, didn't walk him, didn't have Gorzolani walk him, or Wilson walk him, instead had Wilson face him. When he could have walked him with that guy on third base, 2 outs, why not that? How big of a mistake was that by Ausmus? I think a huge one, Dom. Your take on it.
I think the mistake was he probably should have kept in Gorzolani to face or intentionally walk Altuve there. But I think Wilson could have gotten him out. Altuve, he threw a bad pitch. He threw a cutter over the middle of the plate. If he executed better, he would have gotten him out.
And don't they say, too, that when you want to intentionally walk somebody, you leave that guy in that was already in. You don't put in somebody and right off the bat have him intentionally walk somebody, like Altuve, a 3-time All-Star, who Wilson should not have faced, and Gorzolani should have intentionally walked and not, directly faced. And then you could have put in Wilson after that. That's my opinion on the matter, Dom. Could have been easily solved in that manner.
I think Wilson was going in no matter what at that point because Marwin Gonzalez was on deck, and he's a better hitter right-handed. They would have flipped him to the left side of the plate, and I think Wilson would have managed to get him out. But Wilson threw a bad pitch there. He
did anyways, right? So let's not totally put the blame or place the blame on Ausmus' shoulders, right? Subsequently, with that being said. And now with that being said, once again here, how about Wilson now as the Tigers closer going forward? Because Ausmus kind of favors, it seems like Rondon right now with his hard-throwing ability, consistently locating the pitches now more than he has ever before, it seems like, as well, speaking of Rondon. So in your opinion, Rondon or Wilson going forward for the Tigers as the team's closer? Who's the better guy to be put in that position?
I think Rondon is a better guy to be put in that position, in part due to the velocity on his pitches, gets it up there, but he'll do better sequencing his pitches, using his repertoire more favorably in the future. I think a lot of work there needs to be done still. It's a little raw, but I like his prospects going forward as a closer.
So he has what it takes if he refines his craft with his command and other pitches, his pitches outside of his fastball. He can throw 100, 101 on a consistent basis.
Maybe throw like a Kelvin Herrera throws a 2-seam fastball hard, 98, 99 miles per hour. Add that to his repertoire and have better sequencing, when to throw pitches. Because right now, the home run you saw on Friday he gave up to Preston Tucker was really straight, or Saturday. It was really straight, and Tucker hit him out deep right center field.
And now you're right, this weekend he gave up that game-tying home run. The Tigers wanted an extra, so luckily Vimar, JD came through in that game. I believe it was Friday night against the Stros in Houston. And Rondon's been superb, though, of late recently, besides for that outing, really, on Friday night when he blew that save against the Stros. But now he has more of that stuff to get it done. How about Alex Wilson now? Does he have what it takes to get it done as a closer for the Tigers or another club going forward? Your take on that?
I think him as well. I think you can interchange those guys in the 8th and 9th inning roles. Wilson has a very good cutter, which should help him. Good off-speed pitches he can mix in there. Both those guys going forward are viable options.
So they're both very good options, we believe. Now, we think Rondon's going to be more the closer, though, next year, if they go down that route of using a guy within the organization already. So do you think that's the most likely choice for the Tigers? Even if they don't have Ausmus, another manager in place, such as a Ron Gardenhire, they have one of those guys, let's say. Do you think they'll go with Rondon, an inexperienced closer, as a closer starting on opening day? Or are they going to get away from that, drama that has been there in the past? Because they had the chance of using Rondon. Dombrowski always wanted to use Rondon. He never was good enough or was hurt. So is Rondon the guy, though, next year to start opening day, you think, as a closer?
Well, the hope is making him work through innings this year. By the time spring training comes around, he should be ready to be a viable option as the closer.
And now Wilson, how about him being the setup man then next year, Alex Wilson?
Yeah, I like that too. He's been better in that role, a little bit better. He hasn't had many save opportunities in his career. He was a long reliever, so I like him more in that middle relief setup role.
So you're saying that the Tigers can contend next season then with that duo at the back end of games in the 9th, Rondon, and the 8th, Wilson. They can contend with that duo.
Yeah, they could contend. They could also add an arm.
Like we have talked about right before, not to go on that topic.
Unless they choose to add a closer in free agency, that'll work.
But you think regardless of the manager hire that happens if they fire Ausmus, which looks like it will happen, it should happen. We both believe, as we said in the pre-show, that it should happen for the Tigers. Avila should fire Ausmus. Now, regardless, so you think right now, you think Rondon's more likely to be the closer than a veteran closer type that's out there on the open market in free agency, who they can sign in the offseason. You're saying that much then, right, about the Tigers' current situation?
Well, they could do that too. I don't know what's better. I mean, you could go to a guy, look at free agency, free agent arms out there. You could go for a guy like Rondon who's young, mentor him and really build him up. I wouldn't spend too much money on a closer. That's ridiculous.
Oh, because they've already tried that, gone down that route before, right? With Joe Nathan, didn't work out. And then they tried Rondon. They tried other guys, from within the organization, Samaya, Rodney. Those guys have always been hurt or inconsistent and haven't lasted, have flamed out at some point. So, I mean, you take the risk of Rondon flaming out or getting hurt again, too, with you using him, implementing him as a closer to start off.
Look what the Red Sox did with Papelbon. He was a starter at first. They converted him to a closer.
Well, it's like a Wilson, more of an Alex Wilson type then, right? If you convert him to the full-time closer role, as he was a starting pitcher, or a guy that could have started, was a long reliever, as you said earlier in this podcast, too.
Wilson doesn't have Papelbon's split finger, didn't have his fastball either. It's a little different.
Agreed. There's no comparison, really, between Wilson and Papelbon. And Papelbon can still bring it, and now he is for the Nationals. Not to get into that topic of how they're struggling, and they've fallen under
before
500.
Drew Storen, who was having a breakout year this year, his turn as a closer has been bumped by Papelbon, but he was that guy that was developed as well.
So maybe get the veteran arm like the Nats have done now by trading for Papelbon, and then use that guy that you've built from within your organization, such as a Rondon or Wilson, as your setup man. And I think Rondon will be that hard-throwing setup man next year who can get it done on a consistent basis. As a closer, though, I have my doubts. Even though I know you'll probably go to this too, or you know about this at least, the 8th inning is more that high-leverage situation where you kind of want your top relief pitcher in the ballgame in those situations more than you do in the 9th.
You want Wilson
right?
in there.
So he's been getting it done more often, yeah. So based on that merit, you want Wilson there. But I'm asking you right now, would you rather have a veteran setup man or a veteran closer, though, now? Because of that fact that we just brought up. Because I'm thinking Rondon's the 8th inning guy. And if that's the case, I think you want a veteran closer and not Wilson closing out your games.
I'm not going to, I don't put labels on people. Veterans, they don't mean, that doesn't mean anything. That doesn't surface in my mind to think that just because he's a veteran, he's better.
And the Tigers in recent memory haven't gone out and gotten that closer type. Besides for Joe Nathan, they had a chance to get K-Rod after the 2008 season, never signed him. Had a chance to get Papelbon right when he was a free agent, never signed him. So they're not probably going for that big arm veteran guy.
Simply put, Wilson's been one of the best setup men we've seen in Major League Baseball this year. He's up there.
And you know what? He's been like that Drew Smiley type. Right? I mean, Smiley was so good, so efficient in the 8th inning, was great in 2013.
Yeah.
Then he became a starting pitcher after that. Wilson won't become a starting pitcher after this. But I'm saying, you know what? If you think that he's another Smiley, this time, now you know from a recent example with Smiley that you keep him in the 8th inning.
Even the Cardinals in the World Series, their bullpen was very good, and they were all homebred talent.
Yeah, you're right.
From the farm system, Kevin Zegras, Seth Maness. They had guys going out there, dialing up the fastball, young guys, young projects that did well. To me,
if you can dial it up, I don't care where you're from, farm grown, homegrown, or outside of the organization with another ball club, and you go and trade or sign that guy. I think if you can throw hard, I don't care what your age is. And you're saying that too. The age is just a number, realistically, right?
Realistically, yeah.
If you can get it done, doesn't matter your age. And I think that's the thing with the Tigers too. The same thing applies. Same rule applies to the Tigers with Wilson, with Rondon. But the difference now that I argue here is that Wilson can't throw it hard, right? He doesn't really throw it 95, 96. He's not like one of those Cardinals homegrown guys that really came up through the farm system and was great right away with that hard fastball, the cheese of 95 and above.
Trevor Hoffman didn't throw hard either.
And he was an efficient closer. I'm just saying the Cardinals guys that came up through the farm system.
Maness only doesn't throw that hard. He only throws in the low 90s.
Okay, very good. So for me, though, to get back on track, I would say I would like Rondon as the 8th inning guy, Wilson as a 7th inning guy. Even though you brought up the good point, though, really these guys shouldn't have definite roles or definite innings where they pitch every single game. Really, it should be based on game-to-game situations, right?
Exactly.
And Ausmus, he's struggled with that. He's applied the method of inning to inning. I have to have one guy in specific innings, and I can't differ from that. Leland really didn't vary from it either. He got slammed a lot for his bullpen management. And now Ausmus is doing the same thing and even gets ridiculed and slammed more often because he's an inexperienced second-year manager at the big league level. And in his career, he never coached before, obviously.
Yeah, he's done a terrible job with the bullpen, but so have a lot of managers in the past, and teams have given them time. But I sense a little bit of impatience from the Tigers organization when it comes to their willingness and just their strive for a world championship here. So I think that'll play into the factor. I think that will be Ausmus's demise.
And the pitching isn't coming up. There's no strong arms in the farm system right now that can come up and take over in the 8th inning or 9th inning next year to help the Tigers win in 2016. That's my opinion, too. And does that hurt or enhance Ausmus's chances of staying on as the manager for the big league ball club in 2016? The fact that they don't have too much in the farm system.
Well, I don't think that would. I think what will deter his chances of coming back is like we've been saying, inability to work a bullpen efficiently and just putting guys out there in the wrong situations. Some of his lineup handlings have been questionable. I don't think he looks at like on base percentage too much when he picks out a lineup. He shuffles the 8, 9, 1, 2 hitters way too often.
You don't like Ghost hitting leadoff.
Well, no,
that's one of your points too, right?
This year he's been a good lead. He's hit better for average in the leadoff spot, but I don't like him. He's not consistent, and he can't hit lefties, and he strikes out a lot. So, but he has speed, so you can put him in the 9 spot because it seems like every time he gets on base, he takes a big lead. He can get a steal. He already has 18 this year, but he lacks a little bit, and he can't really catch up to fastballs. He doesn't fit that leadoff spot because he's not a high-contact hitter.
Ghost has the speed that kills, right, from the 9 spot in the lineup. To turn over the lineup, maybe he gets on, then you have that speed at the bottom and at the top of the lineup. That's the advantage of doing that.
Yeah.
With Davis, Ghost,
and Ghost, they both have slipped off this year. You look at Billy Hamilton. If Ghost was like Billy Hamilton a little bit, obviously he has a better on base than Billy Hamilton, but it seems like Hamilton, every time, he has like 54 stolen bases, I believe. If he can get on base a little bit more going forward, that could help his cause. But he might not last here going into the end of next year, maybe as soon as mid-season next year.
And really, Dom, wouldn't you say it's hard to quantify what those guys do at the speed if they don't get on base? It's about the on-base percentage, too, to start off. If you don't get on base, it doesn't matter how quick you are.
He's done a little bit better. He's done a little bit better working the count. What he could do more is swing early rather than taking pitches. But yeah, the center field position is not a glamorous offensive position. So he's not a replacement level player yet. He's about a 0.1 WAR, but he's a bona fide fourth outfielder.
He is. And how many fourth outfielders do the Tigers currently have on their roster, though? Tyler Collins is another one of those. And Davis can be here and there. Better, more of a third outfielder than Ghost is currently, and he has been in his career more than Ghost.
This is the best you might see out of Ghost. This is probably his career year, the year that he's having right now.
Nothing better than this going forward.
I don't see it. I really don't. You hope. Wally Joyner really helped him out. Got his swing back on tack. He was never really a big hitter, but in the minors, he always could steal. Kevin PR beat him out last year for the fourth outfielder spot. PR has taken off. The Blue Jays made a good decision there.
So, Dom, you like what the Jays then with the speed, and those guys get on base more often than Ghost.
Yeah.
I mean, to sum it up.
Yes.
And they started off as speed guys first, too, and really couldn't hit to save their lives. Ghost is doing better and better. Hopefully he continues to grow. If he does, he could be a full-time center fielder.
Yeah, if he continues to grow, he can be a full-time center fielder. He's only 25.
Well, the center field position, the bullpen, and the lack of depth in the bullpen has made it hard for Ausmus in his second year as a manager. It might cost him his job ultimately because I don't see anybody coming up either within the farm system to help him out, to help save his job for next year. They don't have that kind of farm system like the Royals have in the past when they had Herrera come up. I mean, guys like that who helped out Ned Yost look better, obviously with his management of the pen. And Yost has grown in that role. Ausmus, I don't think, will get that chance to grow in that role, Dom. As you were saying before, too. Probably not going to get another chance.
You
probably not another chance as a manager.
You have to go with as many young arms as you have, in both on the 40-man roster and the 25-man roster, and see who can get the job done when their number is called. Buck Farmer, time again, he's been very inconsistent. He has the makings of a reliever though, because he doesn't have the endurance, but he has a really good ground ball to fly ball ratio, which is very intriguing. He could be a long reliever, and so could Fulmer too. Sessa can bring it, but but they're not. I wouldn't say they're great options. None of them really have the closer setup stuff.
So, Dom, could Vizquel, let's bring up Omar Vizquel now, could he manage his team better or manage the pen better? Now, we have nothing to judge it upon, nothing to evaluate it, him on from past managerial experience at any level. But what do you think, based on his merits alone of being a great all-star shortstop and being a quality first base coach who I think is bonded with a lot of these foreign ball players? What do you think? Better than Ausmus if they hired him to be the manager next year?
He wouldn't deviate too much to what they're doing right now. They've been a really good defensive team this year. He'd be really good with the infield, working those guys. He could be a mentor to Iglesias, who gets a little carried away, gets a big head sometimes, and nonchalance it. I think he'll be good for him. He'll be good for the infield, like I said. Defensively, they'd probably be a solid team with him. But they'd probably take a lot of put into defensive metrics, maybe get in their shifts and a lot of other defensive adjustments they'll make for the team. I think in that respect, he'll be better than Ausmus.
And now, do you think Iglesias has already, reaped the benefits from Vizquel being that infield coach, the guy that's mentored Iglesias to this point too on this ball club?
McCann?
Iglesias, do you think he's already reaped the benefits from Vizquel being the first base coach, the infield coach, and mentoring as he already has Iglesias to this point?
I think so. I think he wouldn't have been the hitter that he is right now. I think he's the high contact rate. He slaps the ball the other way. Vizquel was like that too. He's always a good hit and run candidate. Every year he played in the majors with the Indians. And even the White Sox, he had a good hit and run candidate with Juan Pierre and that. So I think he's worked wonders with Iglesias.
And then he learned to do it all towards the end of his career with the White Sox. He played every single position, and I think even third base more than shortstop. So Vizquel really could do it all, learn how to hit tremendously too, as an all-star because of it.
I'm surprised
4 or 5 times.
They don't,
5 times.
The Tigers don't use a ton of shifts. I'm surprised by that.
Is that because of the manager, Brad Ausmus, too?
I'm surprised because Ausmus he seems like the analytical type.
Or right, he led us to believe that at first when he was when he was hired to be the manager. I think it was based on that too, in my opinion. I think he got Dombrowski to bite on that, to drink the Kool-Aid, right, as Jim Jones did. And where was that, Dom? Long time ago, and all those guys drank the Kool-Aid and suffered because of it. Well, the Tigers fan base has suffered because of Brad Ausmus. Dombrowski drinking the Kool-Aid when Ausmus was in his interviews, right, to get the job with the Tigers as the manager last season. So that's my take on that, Dom. But now, looking at Justin Verlander, his success in recent memory, 2 great outings, his last 2, 7 Ks, no earned runs allowed combined. Okay, so very good, very sharp. What do you think about him going forward now into 2016? And has he now turned the page or turned a corner? Can we say that about JV at this point?
Small sample size, I'll say that, but he looks very, very good from a small sample size perspective. He's working his pitches more efficiently. He's not overexerting himself out there. He's pitching to contact more. He knows the hitter's weaknesses to a T, it seems. He's doing a lot better that way. He always wants to get better out there. You can sense it. He's just a hardworking. He could be a guy that could be a quality starter going forward. I have to see a little bit more. I would hope he cuts down on the home runs now. He needs to get lefties out a little bit better. Work in his changeup against his lefties. Use his slider against the righties a little bit more. The off speed has to be prevalent in all his starts. But I think going forward, right now, you got to ride the hot hand, and he has the hot hand.
Does he look like a bona fide ace, though, right now? Or is he still that number 2, number 3? And if the Tigers are getting that, they're still all right. And you could argue right now he's the most consistent starting pitcher for the Tigers, which is not a bad thing, obviously, for the Tigers.
I don't think he's a bona fide ace type of guy. He's about a number 2, number 3.
Which is great,
starter,
because
yeah.
What did we think going into this year, Dom? What did you think, honestly, about Verlander and the type of pitcher that the Tigers would get here in 2015 out of JV?
Well, I thought he'd always have a tough time coming back from being hurt. He had another rehab stint, unexpected, mid-season. So he had to go to Toledo there, so that delayed his process of coming back, being on time, being sharp with all his pitches, executing fully. I think there we saw a little hiccup in his game. He didn't win a game Took his like 6th or 7th start.
And now he's still only 1-5.
He's still only 1-5.
But let's kill the win. How about that Brian Kenny movement, right? To hashtag kill the win for a long time there when he was on Twitter and everything. Really,
wins
it means nothing.
No,
right?
Wins don't mean diddly.
Diddly squat, Dom, they mean, right?
They don't. Corey Kluber's been very good this year.
How many wins?
ERA.
6, 7?
7 wins.
I mean, come on. I mean, we could get a win. All of us could get a win in here, right? Technically, if we pitch the 5 that we need and our offense scores.
Kluber was like 5-12.
And that's not fair to him. And that's not a fair way to judge and evaluate what he's done for the Indians this year. He's still been their ace and a good, reliable ace for the most part.
Verlander's fielding independent pitching won't be at that level it was back in his 2011 MVP years and his peak years. He's surpassed his peak years, but he can be a good option, a number 2 or 3 starter.
So, Dom, very good analysis. And for me, we don't need a 2011 MVP Cy Young caliber JV. We need a 2013 JV or 2012 JV, right?
Well,
if we can get a 2013 where he had an ERA below 4, that's a good number 2, number 3, because he throws the innings too. He's an innings eater and a bulldog for the Tigers as a number 2 or number 3.
Yeah, he won't. It's not great that he's only that because of his contract. His contract warrants ace, the money he's getting paid.
Yeah, anybody getting paid that, I agree.
So he's really not fulfilling his duty as a pitcher. He's not doing what he should be doing. He should be still that guy. He should. I know he's working hard, but he's got to be almost got to be that guy because the money's going to be tight going in the off season, and the Tigers have hit the cap, salary cap tax, so they have to pay taxes now. We see the Dodgers avoid it a little bit, but the Dodgers are like that too, where you spend a lot on guys, you give them big money, they have to execute, and now he's approaching, he's getting be past 30 now in age. That's when the pitchers decline.
You see it more, right?
You see it more, especially guys that have been hard-throwing guys who've had injuries in the past. That injury bug can always bite them back whenever it seems with guys like that, veterans. You see guys that just can't fight that injury bug. Chase Utley's like that, and other MLB veterans are like that as well.
Dom, you talked about JV's duty as an ace. He's not fulfilling that, but you're fulfilling and satisfying your duty as my co-host on Tigers Talk with Chirco and Co. And with that said, we'll talk about Chase Utley, who you named a little bit, with Kyle O'Connor, our guest coming up here on Tigers Talk with Chirco and Company today. We'll be right back after this quick break.
Doc here for FanaticU.com, Detroit Sports official outfitter. Go to FanaticU.com and check out the great gear covering all Detroit sports. They got 6 locations all across Metro Detroit. Go check out and get ready for the Lions. Get ready for the college football season. You're going to go out to your tailgates. You want to have your U of M gear, your Michigan State gear. Go to one of the 6 locations and pick up great gear at great prices. And if you shop online at FanaticU.com, use promo code DSP. Anything you buy, even clearance items, you can save 15%. They recently sold a great amount of Old English D hats with the Michigan logo, the Block M. Great hat. Pick it up before they sell out. FanaticU.com, promo code DSP.
And now we are joined by Kyle O'Connor of 5whitesports.com. He's a Notre Dame Irish Slappy and also a Cubby Slappy, and he's on today to talk about his Chicago Cubs and their huge success thus far this year. Kyle, what's going on?
Doing pretty well. How are you, Vito?
Very good, and thanks for joining my brother and I today on this 4th edition of Tigers Talk with Chirco and Company, and we branch out here and there to discuss some Major League Baseball news and notes, and your Cubs are good enough to discuss today. They warrant the discussion about White Sox, Cubs, who's better, who has a better future, but also just specifying some stuff about your Cubs here, first and foremost, such as Starlin Castro. Let's start off by talking about him and his struggles so far this year. What has happened to the former Cubs stud shortstop? I mean, when you look at his stats this year, really go analytical here. He has the 2nd worst WAR among all shortstops in baseball. How did this happen after his really good year in 2014 and how he came up from the farm system, was a great rookie, and how this all of a sudden? What's happened to him, Kyle?
Yeah, I mean, it's pretty odd, isn't it? You see a 3-time All-Star. He should be hitting his prime in his mid-20s. And, I mean, he just fell off the face of the earth. I don't know if it's internal pressure. I mean, the middle of the infield for the Cubs, the entire system is just so stacked. I don't know if he saw the writing on the wall, if he wasn't able to handle the pressure. Addison Russell is obviously clearly a better player right now. and Javi Baez, who should be up within a couple weeks, is a better player. And it really leaves Castro without a position. He's going to turn into a super utility guy. And it really seems like they missed an opportunity. I mean, we were just last year at the trade deadline, and even early on this year in this past winter, people were talking about a Castro swap for one of those Mets starting pitchers, not named Matt Harvey, for someone like Jacob deGrom or Noah Syndergaard. I mean, obviously the Cubs have pulled the trigger on that in a second now, but a guy that should be hitting. He's never been a great fielder, but he's always been a really good hitter, and he's just not performing this year. I'm not sure his exact numbers up to date, but I'm pretty sure his on-base percentage is hovering around 270, 275 maybe. That's not going to cut it.
He's not cutting the mustard seed. And then you have Addison Russell coming up from within the farm system. He can take over and supplant, Castro very soon here by the end of this season, by next year, probably next year, obviously, at this point. But with all that said, I mean, does Castro have a future in Wrigleyville, Kyle?
I'm not sure. It depends what role he wants to bring on. Financially, they can afford him because they locked him up pretty early on. He's not on a huge contract. For how he's performed this year, he's probably overpaid. But if he wants to be a utility guy, I mean, he's already we're about a week deep of him seeing the bench now. Addison Russell's the everyday shortstop. So he's getting some time at second, especially when the lefties pitch. When Baez comes up, that'll probably change too. If he moving forward, I don't know what they could get for him. You kind of hate to trade a guy that it's there somewhere for nothing. But if he wants to be a utility guy, maybe he can turn it around. I wouldn't have a problem seeing him stick around. It's not like he's making a ton of money.
And now he's playing at second base as well, maybe going to play at third base consistently more as a utility guy too. So really all over the infield. Dom, what do you think about Starlin Castro and his struggles and whether or not he can have a role with the Cubs next year?
Well, yeah, he's not. The defense isn't there anymore. A lot of nonchalant you see out of him. Obviously, good point about his on-base percentage, below 300. That's well below average for an everyday player. So going forward, he's a bona fide utility player.
And then, Kyle, how about his diminished trade value now? Like you had mentioned, maybe he would have been traded for a Mets young starting pitcher, young phenom in the rotation. Now there's no chance of that happening. So where is that value now? How low has it sunk for Castro?
I don't think you get anything above a high ceiling 19, 20-year-old if you're lucky. As far as bringing in someone that's ready to contribute to a pennant race, maybe a bullpen arm if someone thinks they could turn him around. Just like with every sport, not just baseball, it doesn't matter the sport. People will look at what should be high-end talents and think they can change them. You'll see it with high draft picks in every sport. They'll get a few years down the line. It's obvious it's not there. People still want to give them a shot, but no one's going to give up anything of value for them. So I think that's why Theo and Jed sat tight at the trade deadline rather than move them and get 20, 30 cents on the dollar. Maybe he can turn it around. Maybe he has a big postseason run. He starts off hot next year, and you can move him next July for something.
And now, all of a sudden, under the tutelage, managerial experience of Joe Madden, the Cubbies are the third best team in the NL. This great ball club. But they're not going to win it all, right? They have no chance of advancing to the Fall Classic, Kyle. Come on now. What do you think? Are they that good?
I'm pretty surprised they are where they are this year. I mean, if we're being realistic, they're probably 2 years early from where they should be at contention. They're starting four or five rookies. Beyond Lester and Arrieta, there's questions in the rotation. The thing is with baseball, I mean, a team gets hot, they get hot. It doesn't really matter. The one-game playoff, right now, it looks like it's kind of a toss-up whether it be in Pittsburgh or Chicago. If it's in Chicago, you got to like their chances because they'll go with Arrieta. And even with Garrett Cole or Francisco Liriano, neither one of them has been doing what Jake Arrieta's been doing. Then beyond that, they'd probably have to face St. Louis. That's a tall task, especially for a bunch of kids that are 21, 22 years old. So no, I wouldn't be expecting them to win the World Series. But at this stage in 2015, just making the playoffs is well beyond my expectations. I was hoping for 500 this year.
How beneficial has Madden Ball been in year one in Wrigleyville?
I mean, I don't think it can even be quantified how important he's been. I mean, he's a guy that has a history of relating to young players, getting the best out of them. Playing for the Cubs is kind of a different deal, obviously, with 108, 109 years. There's a lot of pressure when you show up at Wrigley every day, and he does a good job of downplaying it, just telling them to take a game at a time, he recognized that they needed strong veteran leaders. That's why they ponied up for John Lester, who's been worth every penny. Brought in a guy like David Ross, who maybe doesn't give a whole lot at the plate, but he's a good clubhouse guy. He's good defensively. Miguel Montero, Dexter Fowler. These are all veterans he knew were needed to bring in to kind of offset the 21, 22-year-old kids. And from a strategy standpoint, I mean, the guy's a genius. I mean, I end up questioning him 3-4 times a week, and 3-4 times a week it works out for him. You know, a lot of people say, why is he doing that? He usually ends up working. I mean, he's a really, really bright guy.
Now, what do the Cubbies need to do to take the next step now? What is the next thing they have to do? And how about this season, with this season that's still left, how about adding the like of a Chase Utley veteran type? What do you think about that happening for the Cubbies?
Yeah, he's going to have his choice between a few teams. I know the Angels are still in the mix. Depending on what they're feeling with Javi Baez, I think will ultimately decide that. I mean, he's the mega prospect that came up last year for a little bit, and then this year he had family member death, and he broke his finger when he started mashing again in the minors. And he's getting back in the swing of things, and he's mashing again. If they think he can come up and give that offense at second base, I don't think there's much need for Utley. I would have liked to have seen him maybe add a high-end 3 starter, mid-rotation guy. Dan Herron isn't that guy at the deadline. You really want to go in the postseason with 3 big arms. But with Theo making it obvious they're willing to spend $150, $200 million again this offseason, and guys like David Price, Jordan Zimmerman being free agents, I'm okay waiting another year and holding on to all the prospects. So this year, if they want to add a middle infielder, maybe a corner outfielder through the waiver process, I'd be fine with that. Moving forward, they need another top-of-the-rotation guy and a little bit more bullpen help.
Yeah, they might be singing the tunes of Feel Reunited and It Feels So Good next year on the north side, in Wrigleyville with David Price. That could be a reuniting, right, of Price and Madden there. What do you think of those chances right now, Kyle?
I agree. I mean, it just kind of seems to be trending that way, doesn't it? People bring up the Cubs to David Price, and he's always kind of nonchalant about it, but it's no secret that he loves Madden. It's no secret that although he's never been able to take advantage of it, he'd rather be in the NL, as would any pitcher. And they have all these young guys on such amazing contracts. Even someone like an MVP candidate like Anthony Rizzo, by comparison, is making no money. So that's why they're able to dump just boatloads of money on these starting pitchers. So you bring in Price and you go Price, Arrieta, Lester with that lineup they have that absolutely mashes and more bats coming up yet, then you're talking about a World Series contender where someone like Jason Hamill can move toward the back of the rotation.
Where he belongs, right? And reunited, and it feels so good in the north side of Chicago for the Cubbies. Dominic, what do you think about that happening? David Price and Joe Madden reuniting in 2016 and for the long term.
Yeah, I think the Cubs are going to have a lot of money to spend again this offseason, so I think it's a viable kickback option there. He's going to be the guy, the most sought-after starting pitcher in the market. They have the Madden connection there. A lot of positives heading there. I think Price, honestly, will wind up there.
And for big money. I mean, subsequently, and as you said, Theo Epstein, I mean, they're willing, the Cubs right now, the front office, to open up the checkbook big time to enhance their ball club's chances of winning next year and winning not just a playoff game or series, but winning it all in 2016. And with that being said, Price probably is going to be added. It's probably the most likely big name to be added by the Cubs, in my opinion, Kyle, in the offseason coming up.
Yeah, I'd agree. If you're looking, if you're in Vegas and you're handicapping where David Price is going to land, I'd probably put Chicago as the favorite just because they're going to be able to pay him so much money. And he gets to go to, someone like Joe Madden that he loves. He gets to go where he's going to have an offense that he knows is going to put up runs. He doesn't have to be the guy with Lester and Arrieta there. He gets to go to the NL. Just a lot of it makes sense. And, again, with the contracts, they've been able to get these young guys on. I mean, Chris Bryant, Kyle Schwarber, Jorge Soler, Anthony Rizzo, Javi Baez, Albert Almora when he comes up. These guys aren't making any money. So you're able to pay pitchers $20, $25 million a year. So you couple all that with the fact that they'll probably be able to offer Price the most money, and I think he ends up in Chicago.
Now, Dominic, how about Jeff Samardzija reuniting with the Cubbies on the north side of Chicago in 2016?
Go ahead.
Go ahead, Dom is saying, because he's been miserable for your White Sox this year, right?
Batting average against is 275 this year. He's just been deplorable, a lot of hits. He's given up the most hits in the American League. It always seems like he's tipping his pitches too. He can't seem to get. The Cubs were getting his split finger. I think Rizzo hit one over against him. They're getting good hacks on Samardzija. He doesn't look the same.
Kyle, would you take him back for your Cubbies in 2016 for cheap? Because I think he might go for a bargain now, under $100 million, because he would have reached north of that, in my opinion, if he would have had ace caliber numbers throughout this season.
Right. I mean, he's not going to get. Theo's not going to offer him the contract he offered him before they traded him, which was 5 years, $85 million. That's just not going to happen. If he can come on a bargain and be a 4 or 5 starter, I'd have no problem with that. You go Price, Arrieta, Lester, Samardzija, Hamill. I mean, that's pretty good rotation in my opinion. But what he said about Samardzija and some issues with tipping his pitches, it looks like it's probably accurate. He needs people to swing at those splitters, especially when they're behind in the count. And the Cubs weren't doing it, and that forced him to pound the zone a little bit with his fastball. And you get those young hitters that the Cubs have. And honestly, throughout the AL Central, teams like the Twins and the Royals have those young hitters that can turn on fastballs, and it just spells disaster. So if he wants to come on a bargain, I'd be fine with it. But he's not getting that same offer that Theo offered him before they traded him for 2 mega prospects.
And really, it's been a disaster for the White Sox on the south side of Chicago up to this point. They had big expectations from people, pundits like myself, who picked the White Sox to advance all the way to the ALCS. Probably should not have done that, but I did. I was bold enough to make that pick and everything. And Dominic, my White Sox fan brother here, even thought I was crazy for doing so. And he loves the White Sox. He knows them like the back of his hand. So he knows everything, the in and outs of the White Sox day to day. Very good with his Sox. And you do if you're Cubbies. So it brings us to this vital discussion topic. Who's better off going forward now? The Cubs with their current roster of players in the farm system on the major league level, or the White Sox, Dom's Chicago White Sox with their current farm system and major league roster going forward? Kyle, first with you on that one. Cubbies or White Sox going forward?
I mean, I don't want to, kick any White Sox fans or anything while they're down, but I don't even think that's really a question.
And I was thinking that, how far off are the White Sox from the Cubs, realistically speaking, with the current young players?
I think every GM in the league, if you could take any team's 25 and under talent, would take the Cubs. When you're looking at MVP candidate like Anthony Rizzo and arguably future candidates like Kyle Schwarber, Chris Bryant, Javi Baez, Jorge Soler. I mean, they have their farm system is still a top 5 farm system down there with Billy McKinney, Albert Almora, C.J. Edwards, Dan Vogelbach. I mean, they're just loaded on young talent, and they have all this talent locked up for a very long time. So you're looking at a minimum 5-6 years with this core. It's only going to get better. They only have money to spend. They're only going to age into their prime rather than out of their prime. Whereas the White Sox, I think they're in a little bit of a tricky situation. You have Chris Sale on a very team-friendly contract, but that could be viewed as a positive or a negative. He'll be good enough to keep them kind of right there, kind of how they are this year, to where you don't want to completely sell the farm and, kind of start over. He's good enough to always think you're going to be there. Samardzija won't be back. He better not be back. They're too smart to offer him that much money. And in that lineup, I mean, how many guys are you saying that's a staple for the next 5 years? Jose Abreu and, I don't know, Garcia? I don't know. I really like Quintana. I love Quintana, especially as a mid-rotation guy. If he's your 3 or 4, he's probably one of the best 3 or 4s in the league. But big picture, I don't even think it's close. I think the Cubs are in better shape moving forward.
Big picture for Kyle O'Connor. We just heard it. Kyle O'Connor on with us right now from 5whitesports.com. A great voice about the Cubs and Notre Dame Irish. Knows his stuff, and he just told us, big picture, Cubs are not even close with the White Sox when it comes to the farm system. The prospects for the Cubs are so much better, and the long-term future is so much better for the Cubs than it is for the team that they share a rivalry with in state, in the Chicago White Sox. Dom, give us your take now as a White Sox fan.
Yeah, I would have to agree the bigger picture is better, but they can make ground here. I think their starting pitching has been the bright spot. The White Sox lineup has been just terrible. Avi Garcia, when they got him, everyone expected big things out of him in right field. Hopefully, they're all hoping he get his power stroke and start hitting home runs. And this year, he only has 12 home runs. So for a guy that should be hitting, between 25 and 30 by now, as far as when they got him. But the pitching's good going forward. I like Rodon going forward. They got young arms with Rodon, Sale. Quintana's a viable 3 option there. They got guys in the minors too, top 100 guys. Frankie Montas, who is in the middle between it's not sure, is he a starter or is he a reliever? He throws hard. Tim Anderson coming up, shortstop. Alexi Ramirez hasn't been the same defensively, reaching his peak already as far as that, kind of like a Starlin Castro, where all of a sudden his production has fallen off, both offensively and defensively. But going forward, yeah, the Cubs have a bigger picture, bigger window here. Also, Adam LaRoche has been deplorable. It reminds me of the Adam Dunn. Every Nationals first baseman, when they come to Chicago, they just fall off the face of the earth. Can't
the
make
first
contact.
name of Adam, too, right? LaRoche
name
Dunn,
of Adam,
like you said. That's funny how that's happened with the White Sox on the south side of Chicago in 2015. Up to this point, and it looks like it's not going to improve that much at this point in the season, obviously, too, for the White Sox.
No, it doesn't look like it. None of it's consistent. When their offense explodes, and then the next series they'll lay an egg. But I think their pitching is getting better, and they're going to have Carson Fulmer, their first-round pick, coming up. They could have a good young nucleus there going forward for many years. They have Chris Sale on a team-friendly deal. They're probably going to have to lock up Rodon because I think he's going to do big things as well. He struggled a little bit this year, but he's starting to get his mojo back when he had at NC State, using a lot of innings, and then he had 10-plus strikeouts for the first time since a White Sox rookie since '93. So I think as far as starting pitching, but yeah, lineup.
Starting pitching might be better for the White Sox going forward as a young unit, right, of starting pitchers. I mean, you have Sale, Quintana, Rodon, and Carson Fulmer. That's a deep 1 through 4 if they all come to form.
If everything comes to fruition, yeah. But another spot, they've always had a hole there, third base, since probably Joe Creedy. They've always had a hole there. They've had Josh Fields was expected to be a big part of the team. Even Connor Gillespie kind of burned out real quick. Had a good first half last year and then fell off. Defense is bad. Right now they got Saladino playing there. I don't think he's really a second baseman, middle infielder by trade that's forced to play third base. He can pick it at third, but his hitting's a little bit down. He's only their number 15th prospect. So yeah, they got to upgrade there somehow, some way. But with the contract they gave out to Milky, I like Milky, but he's older. He's on the other side of 30, the wrong side of 30, and somehow they're going to have to get lucky with one of those guys. Maybe Trace Thompson turns out to be something special. We'll see.
And Dom, it seems like the White Sox's only chance of beating the Cubs this year has been Chris Sale, and he proved that on Sunday. 15 Ks he had, right? Cubs are red hot, unbeatable, 9-0 until that game, and now 9-1 in their last
no chance
10.
Against them.
Yeah, I mean, he was so good on Sunday, Kyle. I mean, you got to give Dom and the White Sox credit. He's the ace and the most bona fide ace of those two Chicago-based Major League Baseball franchises.
Which, I mean, and that makes sense. That's another little thing that Joe Madden's so good at that a lot of people notice. I mean, the Cubs probably aren't going to beat Chris Sale 9 times out of 10. They swing and miss a lot, and he produces a lot of swings and misses. So he shuffled the rotation a little bit and basically sent Dan Herron out as a sacrificial lamb. I mean, he sat Schwarber, he sat Coughlin, he sat some guys, get him some rest. Does it seem a little silly in the middle of a playoff race to basically concede a game like that? I don't think so. I mean, they'd won 9 in a row. I think they could have sent out their A team with Lester Arrieta on the mound. They probably still lose to Sale. I mean, he's just really good, and especially against a team like the Cubs. And now Lester and Arrieta can step up, and I think they have the Tigers coming to Wrigley today for a couple, and then they have Atlanta. So there's another opportunity to go on another streak, whereas Chris Sale was just we got to the 4th, 5th inning, and I was just hoping for a hit.
He's that good right now. He's a bona fide ace, Dom. He really is. And one of the best left-handers in the game. I mean, he is that good.
Yeah, he got Denorfia to swing at his slider that hit him in his front leg. That's how nasty Chris Sale is.
It was laughable, Kyle. It really was. And your Cubbies are in a good state right now. Going forward, how many wins do they end up finishing with before we end this conversation today about your Cubs?
I'll say they end up in the high 80s somewhere, 87, 88 wins. If they can push that to 90, that's probably where we're going to have to be at to get the game at Wrigley. Right now, Pirates dropped one last night, so I think they're 2 behind Pittsburgh. They're 4 ahead of San Francisco, and then Washington's like probably 10. They got to be 10, 11 back by now. So it's basically a 3-team race for 2 spots. that they have the Giants have an absolutely brutal schedule coming up, just brutal. And the Cubs have a pretty relaxed schedule. So the Pittsburgh games will be big, and, it sucks for Pittsburgh fans. It will be, their third year in a row with a one-game playoff. But hopefully it's at Wrigley, and Wrigley can be rocking, put Arrieta on the mound, and see what happens.
And Kyle O'Connor, 5whitesports.com. Thanks for dropping the Cubs insight on today's edition of Tigers Talk with Chirco and Co. And have a good one.
Thanks, guys. Have a good day.
Alrighty, and that was indeed Mr. Kyle O'Connor, 5whitesports.com, dropping the insight, the knowledge, whatever you want to call it, about his Chicago Cubbies. And they're looking great right now, Dom. And how many more wins did they attain? I mean, they're at 3 below 70, I believe, right now, at 67 and 49, something like that. Going forward, though, how many do they end up finishing with? What's your take on that, Dom?
I think they're 85, 86 win team, but we'll see if they get a lull here. Maybe their hitters slump again. Their rookie hitters get on like a August, September swoon a little bit. I mean the Cubs are a hit and miss team when it comes to offense. They have guys with a lot of power, but they have guys that swing and miss a lot. Evidenced by Chris Bryant. For example, Chris Sale 0 for 6 with 6 strikeouts. So
bringing up the Chris Sale factor again, the great outing performance from Sunday against the Cubbies, but he was dynamite. He's a dominant left-handed ace for the White Sox. I think he's the best left-hander in the game. I mean, besides for Kershaw, right? I mean, Kershaw, Sale, or Kershaw, Price, Sale.
Keuchel.
It's very close. Keuchel's coming up. He's another Cy Young candidate in the American League.
Been good in the American League.
And nobody talks about Keuchel. I mean, I think he's a Cy Young candidate and should be based on wins, all that, the success of the Astros. And Chris Sale should be too, but doesn't really have all the wins because of the lack of run support, the White Sox being a poor squad. But still, he's been good enough, sharp numbers, great numbers. So with that being said, Price now with what he's doing in Toronto, what he did in Detroit, I think you have 3 guys going for it. Price, Sale, and Keuchel of the Stros, Dom, for the Cy Young Award this year. And King Felix wasn't it. He's been bombed lately, was by the Bo Sox, 10 earned runs, career high.
Sonny Gray will be part of that conversation, too.
So I just think the wins will drop him down, but among the left-handers, as we were talking about.
Among the ERA plus, I think he's number 1, Gray. So.
See, we forget about him because he's in Oakland. I think a lot of people, including myself, do forget about him. But the question then for you, Dom, is who's the favorite right now to win the Cy Young in the American League, Dom?
I think based on first half results and the consistency so far, I'd have to give it the edge to Dallas Keuchel right now. If we were to pick who's going to win today, it's Dallas Keuchel.
And now we were talking about the Cubbies, the National League, the Pirates. He was wishing upon the Pirates another one-game playoff to their fan base. Come on, Kyle, you got to be better than that. It's rude. To me, as a Pirates fan, too, I am. I'll admit that here. I am a closet Pirates fan as well. So with that being said, we're looking now at the NLCS. Who are your picks to make it all the way to the National League Championship Series, Dom?
Yeah, well, to maybe surprised by you, but I have the Pirates making it, and I have the Cardinals. Pirates, Cardinals, NLCS.
All National League Central, and I have all American League East for the ALCS. And then actually for me, for my NLCS...
Actually, if it were to end today, that would not happen. So it would be the Dodgers, Mets, and the Cardinals would play the wild card winner. So the Cardinals would play the Pirates in the NLDS.
Or the Cubbies. Could be the Cubs and Cardinals going at it in the NLDS. How great would that be for a matchup?
Yep. So, but I'll stick with Pittsburgh as my NLCS pick, and I'm going to say the Dodgers beat the Mets. So my NLCS pick is Pittsburgh Pirates against the Los Angeles Dodgers.
Sadly, I don't have my Buccos in the NLCS. I have the NL West facing off. 2 great teams in the National League West this year. The Giants, defending champion San Francisco Giants, and the Los Angeles Dodgers I have facing the Giants in the NLCS. Dom, what do you think of that matchup? Could it happen in the NLCS?
The Giants are 4 games out right now. They have a brutal schedule now, like Kyle O'Connor pointed out. It'll be tough because they don't have they have one ace that has to take the throne for them. A lot of wreckage on that arm, a lot of toll taken out from Bumgarner going forward. I could see some hiccups in his upcoming starts now going forward. Their lineup has its concerns. Angel Pagan's on the DL, but he's been terrible. His on-base percentage is below 300. He's not been a catalyst like we've seen in the playoffs and in past, not in the distant past. But the Pirates and the Dodgers, I think, are the 2 teams that, with their respective lineups together and the starting arms with Cole, Kershaw, Greinke, Liriano. I think
Latos now, right? As well.
Latos now.
More than good enough.
More than good enough, and I think those bullpens will propel them too. The Mets and Cubs are probably a year or two away from being that contender for the World Series, contender for the championship series, contender to win a pennant. But the Pirates and the Dodgers are ready. The Pirates are gonna have a chip on their shoulder, losing 2 years in a row in the wild card game. Jung Ho Kong has been amazing in his first year. Has been one of the better second basemen in the Nationals, or utility, played everywhere, second base, third base in the National League. Their lineup is full of speed, full of wins run created plus, just good teams and good
all around. I mean, the Mets are missing that extra bat. I mean, Cespedes is great, but there's no David Wright coming along that's going to be great again and be Captain America. And Cespedes is limited here and there. And
I really,
they're missing that bat in my opinion.
I really like both those teams' defenses. Team defense. Defense wins championships, and I do believe defense wins championships.
Pirates can get it done out there,
yes.
can't they? Dodgers?
Yeah, they can. You got Puig in right field.
Yep.
Great arm. Peterson can move well out there. Left field, when Crawford's out there.
If he's healthy. It's about Crawford being healthy, really,
yeah.
right?
But yeah, the infield defense is good, too. The guy they got in the trade, the 12-player trade with the Braves, they got in the Marlins, they got Jose Peraza, who's very good defensively. He was the Braves' #1 prospect. They had Agon, who's a Gold Glove first baseman. Jimmy Rollins, who can still pick it at shortstop. Doesn't have the range, doesn't have the UZR he used to have, the zone rating, but he still can pick it, get the job done. He's error-free most of the time. And then you have third base. You have Chichi Hernandez. At third, A.J. Ellis can call a good game at catcher. They can pick it.
To sum it up, they're more than good.
And both those teams, yeah.
And now the bats. I mean, for me with the Dodgers, it's Agon and Kendrick getting it done. Those guys have to be good if they want to contend for a World Series spot. If they want to win it all, it's about Agon and Kendrick getting it done for sure. And Puig has to step it up. Will he, though? That's a question mark, too, for me with the Dodgers.
What has been the kryptonite...
And they're young at catcher.
The kryptonite really for the Dodgers has been Kershaw's...
lack of success,
lack of success against the Cardinals, specifically.
And last year in the postseason against the Cards, you're right. And then Greinke has to get it done now in the postseason. Latos, will he be good enough in the playoffs? He wasn't really sharp with the Reds when they last made it to the playoffs. So all those guys really aren't proven postseason performers. Where you have with the Giants, the bullpen's proven, Bumgarner is proven, Posey is proven, and now Crawford's swinging like this great shortstop that can get it done offensively. So I like the Giants with Pence, Posey, and Crawford to get it done offensively for the Giants out there in San Fran. But my worry is about Bumgarner, Dom. Him being good enough, having that endurance to pitch in the postseason and to be that great ace, because he has to be a bona fide #1 for the Giants to make it all the way back to the Fall Classic. Can he be that good once again? He's been good lately. If he keeps it up, I think the Giants have a legit shot to return to the Fall Classic. Where they will lose to, we'll talk about it next week on Tigers Talk with Chirco and Company. And with that, Dom Chirco, Kyle O'Connor, John Macron always here with us in the studio producing things for Tigers Talk. It's been a great time, a great show. Hope you guys enjoy it, and talk to you again next week for the 5th episode of Tigers Talk with Chirco and Co.